Singapore has a reputation for being strict with its laws. But are there things that actually legal in Singapore but forbidden around the world? Yes, let me tell you about the craziest ones. You're not gonna believe they exist in Singapore. First, in Singapore you can marry your own cousin. Right, there is a list of prohibited relationships made by the Registry of Marriages of Singapore. For example, you cannot marry your father, mother, uncle or auntie. Technically, you can marry an uncle, but not your uncle. I mean, the taxi driver uncle. You know what I mean, right? Okay, anyway, in this list, there is nothing said about marrying your first cousin.
Damn, girl.
It's weird, but worldwide more than 10% of all marriages are between first and second cousins. Charles Darwin, Albert Einstein and Herbert Wells married their first cousins. Why is it even happening? Apart from the cultural aspects, in many modern societies like the US, China, Britain and Singapore, the wealth of the old people when deceased is shared equally between the siblings. So a marriage between cousins sometimes is a way to keep their money inside the family. Interestingly enough, under such a system, the wealth of the family could be retained if marrying MBD instead of marrying FBD. But from a medical standpoint, it's actually not the greatest idea. According to the evolutionary biologists, the problem with cousin marriage is that it can keep so-called bad genes in the gene pool, so close genetic relatives run the risk of having offspring that are less likely to survive. Okay, though in Singapore marrying your cousin is socially discouraged, I found interesting research. On page 3 of this document you can find a graph showing the prevalence of blood-related marriages among Singaporean Chinese is 0.3% compared to 4% among Singaporean Indians. I guess it's also related to so-called arranged marriages that are still common in the Indian community. Anyway, if you want to marry your first cousin, think twice, as your cousin probably knows all the embarrassing things you've done being a teenager.
Say, cousin!
You can own a gun in Singapore. According to Global Finance, Singapore ranks as the 4th safest country in the world. At the same time, you can own weapons in Singapore. Sounds weird, right? Carrying a weapon is an offense in Singapore, but owning a gun is a different story. The weapon must be used for sport, including hunting. You must belong to a gun club, which is the place that keeps the gun. This club is open only to Singapore citizens and Singapore Armed Forces personnel. The entrance fee to become an ordinary member of the gun club is 3,000 Sing dollars, and there is also an annual subscription of $300. And then you would need to apply for an arms and explosives license from the Singapore police force. Fun fact, if a non-firing replica is too realistic looking, it's not allowed because there is no use keeping it in a club and you cannot keep it at home. Okay, even though you can own a real gun, Singapore has the lowest number of gun-related deaths in the world. Singapore has almost 6 million people and there are about 20,000 civilian firearms in the country. For comparison, America has 335 million people and mind-blowing 393 million guns. By the way, in Singapore there is a club where anyone who is responsible adult above the age of 18 can come to the Singapore Rifle Association and try shooting a rifle, handgun or shotgun. Guests can take a day shoot package at 220 Sing dollars per person. My only question on this matter is, am I a responsible adult? Hard to say as I'm making YouTube videos instead of working.
You're a YouTube sensation! What?
You can have more than one wife in Singapore. Yes, you've heard it right. A man may take up to 4 wives, provided that he meets financial requirements and obtains the consent of existing wives. But unfortunately only if the man is Muslim. According to statistics from 2020, about 15.6% of Singapore's resident population are Muslims. A majority of Muslims in Singapore are traditionally ethnic Malays, which comprise over 80% of the Muslim population in Singapore. But hold on, if you're already planning to convert to Muslim, move to Singapore and get your legitimate 4 wives,
Sure, why not?
I have bad news for you. According to the Department Statistics report, only 13 Muslim men had polygamous marriages in 2014 in Singapore. It's 0.2% of all Muslim marriages. It's not common, not socially accepted, and hard in a way of getting permission from your other wives. I know, so sorry. For comparison, in the United Arab Emirates, about 388 men who have more than one wife. Also not great. But surprisingly, around 2% of the global population currently live in a polygamous household. Whoa! And it's most frequently seen in parts of West and Central Africa, where it remains legal. For example, 36% of Burkina Faso's population live in polygamous household, 24 of which are Christians. So guys, check out the table, you have options on where to go.
Welcome to Africa!
Buy a sword. If you are over 18 years old, you can buy a sword in Singapore. In general, swords such as saber, cutlass, samurai sword, katana,
sword baseball bat, sword rifle, sword sharpener, sword pie
fall outside the scope of the Weapons Prohibition Act of 1998. And you don't need a license or permit to own one, and there are no specific safe storage requirements. So you can legally buy a sword in Singapore. There are licensed sword sellers over here. A proper Japanese katana would cost you around $300. It's good to know that swords are often made blunt for safety purposes. But don't rush to carry it to your friend's house to brag about your samurai skills. Owning a sword is legal, but using or being in possession of it in public is illegal. You're not allowed to carry the precious possession out in public without lawful purpose, according to the Singapore police force. So, simply holding sword in public is enough to be arrested. Just enjoy your sword at home, whatever this means. Oh yeah, you can even import swords to the country. Of course, it's very strict procedures, you got to have an import license and stuff, but what the hell, you can import swords but cannot import chewing gum? Really? Be a prostitute and use a prostitute service. Prostitution in Singapore itself is not illegal, but various prostitution-related activities are criminalized. This includes public solicitation and maintaining an unlicensed brothel. Living in the earnings of the prostitute is known as pimping, also is illegal in Singapore. In the first half of the 20th century, prostitution flourished in Singapore. In the early 50s, women's rights activist Shirin Fosdar described Singapore in 50s as one big brothel, and the city was a regional center for prostitution. The People's Action Party, PAP, under the leadership of Lee Kuan Yew, initially banned prostitution when they came to power in the late 1950s. But then the government changed it and found another solution. Their approach became the following: it's better to legalize such activities, but under closer government supervision, rather than drive them entirely underground. Now there are government-regulated brothels where foreign and local women legally offer their services to customers. These women are required to carry health cards and go through regular medical checkups. There is famous red light district in Singapore located in Geylang. The one was heavily affected by the pandemic, but the downfall started even before. Geylang was already dying gradually. There is a shift in trend: dating apps, escort website, you name it. Online customers can be discreet. Not every man would like to be seen on the street. So if you haven't been to Geylang yet, it's time to visit. I mean for a guided tour, of course, to learn the history of this place, you know what I mean. Thanks so much for watching. I think you are also gonna like this video over here. So maybe see you there.